white and depressed. Elena did not leave her father's bed, giving him drink and supporting him during his fits of shortness of breath. In the back of the room, Ilya and Matryona, together with some servants, prayed on their knees before the icons and wept bitterly. At dawn, Danila Petrovich recovered from his forgetfulness and sent for the deacon, to whom he dictated his last will. In case all the goods are not taken by the Tsar, he said, smiling bitterly. He bequeathed large sums to the monasteries, freed some serfs, and the rest of the estate passed to Elena. After signing the will, he became weak again and fell into a drowsy state. Elena, with a depressed heart, listened to her father heavy, labored breathing. She was so overcome with grief that she only noticed Gleb Mihailovich coming when he was already beside her. The young boyar was pale and visibly distraught. He bent over the sick man and then, in a nervous whisper, asked, "What happened, Elena Danilovna? I can hardly believe what they say." Elena, also whispering, briefly recounted everything that had happened on the way back from the monastery, describing the details of Artemy's death. Her voice broke off, and her tears drowned out her words. "And look how it's been since yesterday," she continued, barely controlling her agitation. "Now he lies unconscious. Now he seems to be reliving all the horrible and humiliating things that happened to him at the station, and then here with Artemy. And when he comes to, his fever doubles, and he cries bitterly. The doctor says he won't last until tomorrow. Oh, I'll be alone in the world." She covered her face with her hands and, kneeling down, rested her head on her father's cold, still hand. A deep sorrow reflected on Gleb's face, and his eyes clouded with tears. "Yes, my unfortunate godfather. It was a hard trial that God gave you, to bear these insults and the remorse of having killed your own son." At that moment the sick man became agitated and stammered in a disturbed voice, "God, have mercy on me, a sinner." A tremor ran through his body, and he opened his eyes. When he saw Gleb, a sad smile flashed across his face. "How happy I am, my son, to see you before you die. Who would have thought, when we said goodbye last time, that you would see me dying outraged and murderous? Isn't that true? God sees our souls, Godfather, and judges men differently. I have no doubt that at the altar of the Almighty you will find fair judgment, mercy, and forgiveness." Gleb said convincingly, sighing deeply, "I have come to say goodbye. I have fallen into Opal. They are sending me to a distant Vachina, which I must do without fail. I am unnecessary here, just like you. Thus, they are taking me out of the way. Don't be bitter about your exile, Glubuchka. Believe me, it is better to live in your homeland, among faithful people, than here, seemingly free, but essentially a lackey. There in your homeland, you will be your own master, and no one will stop you from respecting the ancient customs, asking to be a slave, or groveling before all sorts of adventurers, the Canongiers, the Chusters, and other foreign scoundrels. Only God knows what's going on, my son." Gleb Mihailovich lowered his head. "It's true, Godfather, but it's so horrible when you re alone." Elena stood listening intently, her beautiful face alternately blushing and then pale. She seemed hesitant, but finally extended her hand to her ex-fiancé. "If you can forgive my blindness and still love me, you will not be alone in exile. I will follow you everywhere as a faithful wife, sharing your sorrows and joys. My eyes have been opened. Foreign clutter no longer dulls me, and I swear that for the rest of my life I will faithfully uphold my father's precepts, to love only what is ours, Russian, and not what is foreign." Gleb listened in a daze, and a great joy filled his being. He drew Elena to him and kissed her. "All is forgiven and forgotten, my dear. Bless us, Father. See, Elena is your true daughter. She will never forgive the insult directed at her, and the foreign mirage will no longer overshadow her." Against all expectations, Danila Petrovich got up on his own and sat up in bed. His white cheeks flushed slightly, and his eyes shone with joy. "The merciful Creator sent me an enormous grace by allowing me to live up to this moment of happiness, and to know that you are united, and that my daughter will not be left alone and abandoned. I bless you with all my soul, my dear children. May God keep you and help you throughout your lives." He pressed him to his chest, but the last effort weakened his strength, and he sank back onto the pillows. "Daddy," Elena moaned, hugging her father in despair. Understand, Lena, Danila Petrovich said with effort. Death for me is liberation. A minute later, he whispered softly, They're coming, but it's too late. His body shuddered and stiffened. It was the end. His immortal soul fluttered away from the sinful suffering of this earth. Gleb closed the eyes of the deceased, and everyone knelt. The priest began to recite prayers for the soul of the one who had passed from this world. In the next room, heavy footsteps, the clang of weapons, and loud voices were heard. The door burst open, and an officer entered, followed by soldiers. In the officer's hands was a paper, and he announced that he had orders to arrest Prince Danila Petrovich for the murder of his son and the beating of Baron Dorfgame and her Schuster. Elena, standing at the head of the deceased, pulled back the bed curtain to better illuminate the lifeless body, took a step forward and, with a choked voice, said, Prince Danila Petrovich, ordered to live a long time and appear before the eternal judgment. Astonished by the announcement, the officer respectfully crossed himself and withdrew in silence with the soldiers. The power of men could do nothing more there. Having issued the necessary orders concerning the 2 burials, Gleb returned to Bride, who was praying and crying beside her father's body, and took her to the living room. He tried to comfort her affectionately, and little by little his words of consolation, as well as the need to resolve pressing questions about the engagement and departure, brought a certain tranquility to Elena's grieving soul. The young boyar had orders to leave Moscow as quickly as possible, so there was a lot to do. Sitting by the window overlooking the street, they chatted quietly, paying no attention to what was going on outside. Finally, the noisy chatter and the stamping of feet of the moving crowd were noticed by Elena. Something must have happened, she said in surprise, looking through the window. People are running. A bitter smile crossed Gleb's face. The ancient capital of the Russian land is celebrating the first day of the year 1700. The sound of cannon fire, rifle fire, and the music that blared beneath the window drowned out his words. A minute later, a new wave of the crowd rolled in alongside, chanting and shooting. Listen, Lena, how they are celebrating the new year, and at the same time singing the last prayer of old Russia. The new era of lackeys begins. The century of foreign rule